What's up? I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast,
where we interview successful businessmen and women to let you in on why success doesn't have a single formula to follow.
We also have a little bourbon tasting along the way, because why not?
Why not?
So guys, please enjoy this episode and let us know your thoughts at Bourbon and Business Podcast on Instagram.
Coming to you from the Bourbon and Business Studio here at the AC Hotel in Ridgeland, Mississippi. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast. How you doing this morning, Dakota?
I'm great, Tyler. We all moved in unison. It was like we planned that.
We did. Well, you want to introduce our guest to us this morning?
I do. Today we have special guest, Jenna Hope Harris, founder of Hope Unlocked.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. So excited to be here.
Welcome, Jenna.
Glad to have you. And then what are we sipping on this morning, Dakota?
We are sipping on the old JD, Jack Daniels, but this is their Winter Jack. It's the spiced apple punch. I got it because it's just about Christmas time here. I think actually this episode might launch on Christmas Day. So yeah, this is going to be, it'd be good for Christmas.
Well, I'm about to say, so obviously I like the original Jack Daniels. I think it's a great whiskey to have at the house and to sip on. The Winter Jack, not so much.
Not a fan, huh?
It really tastes, I mean, if you don't like the taste of alcohol, this is a great drink for you because it tastes like, it's very smooth, almost to the point of water smooth. And
can you guess the proof?
It's got to be like a 70 proof.
30.
Oh, really? So
it's like a bottle of wine.
Okay, no wonder. So yes, very smooth. It does have some Christmas like taste to it, so I can pick that up. I'm not a huge fan of spice in general, so that's probably why I do not like this. The initial taste is great. It tastes like apple. It's the spice when it comes in. I do not like it. Nothing against it. There's probably people out there that will love it and think it's the best thing ever, but not for me.
It smells fantastic.
It does. It smells great. If you could put it in like a bowl and just let it sit in your house so people could smell it,
like make it into
that would be good. So, or like a potpourri type situation. But I'm gonna have to give this.
You a potpourri guy?
I just remember my grandmother used to have potpourri right now.
Potpourri guy. Okay.
So, anyways, I'm gonna give it a 4.0.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Okay.
So, and nothing against it. Like the regular Jack, it's a totally different story.
What would you rate a regular Jack? Without having sipped it, obviously, but.
Have we rated it on the podcast?
No, we haven't.
I'd give a regular Jack over an 8.
Wow.
So, but I mean, it's two totally separate things. This is not, obviously, it may have some sort of whiskey in it, but not much of it.
It's actually an apple cider liqueur.
Okay. Well, if I was sitting down to drink, this is not what I would say.
Gotcha.
But there are people out there that would. There are people that will love it. It's smooth, smells great. It's got a good initial taste to me.
To be honest, is it not manly enough for you?
It doesn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah,
and
sure.
If it has, if you like spice, this is perfect for you. Fantastic. I hate spice, so therefore, or that kind of spice, I guess, is what I hate. So
not like
the cinnamon. No, I love cayenne pepper. The cinnamon type spice.
Gotcha.
So, anyways, we'll get off that. But Jenna, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We like to always start this episode. Just tell us, where you're from and then how you founded your company.
Absolutely. So I'm a Midwest girl through and through. I was born and raised in Ohio, small little town called Athens, down right in the southeast corner, off the rolling hills of the Appalachians. Beautiful place to grow up. Loved it. Went to college in Indiana Wesleyan University, which is actually where I met my husband. Got married right after we graduated. Lived in Indianapolis for a while, and to be honest, had no plans on leaving the Midwest. Never thought I'd come down to the South, but life has a funny way of turning around and kind of doing what you didn't think it would do. My husband is from Mississippi, so he's got family in northern Mississippi.
Those Mississippi boys.
They get you.
They do.
And so we moved down to Mississippi about 2 years ago now. I'm still waiting for my accent to come in. I don't have that yet. I'm waiting. But it's been so great to see Southern hospitality in action, because it's one of those things that you hear about all the time. But to see it and experience it, the amount of houses I've been invited to for dinner, the amount of people that are just like, yes, come over, meet my family, let's have fun together. It's been incredible.
Well, how surprised were you that we had paved roads and air conditioning?
The air conditioning, that's important. I am so thankful there's air conditioning.
Oh.
Those summers here, woo! That was tough.
But it's wintertime and it's 55 out.
Yeah.
So.
That's not bad. I do miss the snow a little bit at Christmas time.
Yeah.
It doesn't
One every
feel
decade
like
or so.
Christmas.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, so how did you moved down here? You're in the South now. So how did Hope Unlocked come about?
So Hope Unlocked is kind of born out of seeing a need in the community that our thoughts can trick us. Our thoughts often control what we do, and it doesn't have to be that way. And it was that way for me for a really long time. What I was thinking about was something that I didn't feel like I had power over. It was just a thought in my head, and I was kind of victim to that thought no matter what it was. But when I had the realization that we can take our thoughts captive, we don't have to be a victim to our thoughts. We can actually control what we think about. And so when I started paying attention to that, focusing on my inner dialogue, what I was saying to myself, what I was thinking about, I realized that if it can change my life, it can change everyone else's life as well. And not just your personal life, but your business, your community. It has a profound impact. And so Hope Unlocked at its core is this just to show people that hope isn't fragile. Hope isn't just wishful thinking, right? Hope is a mindset and it's a discipline. That even if things aren't okay right now, we can take our thoughts captive to see a brighter future ahead.
Well, I think that is such a powerful thing.
I love it.
I think a lot of people miss that. It's funny. I had someone at my house recently, and they're close to me. And anyways, they said they were being very negative about no, it wasn't me.
Okay.
About how the outcome of something was going to be. And then I was like, no, we don't do that. And they were like, what do you mean? And they were almost offended. I'm like, no, we don't think like it. I can't. I was like, I don't like being around that. Like we got to expect that the best thing is going to happen. If the worst thing happens, we'll deal with it. But let's expect the best. And I think that going through life, and if you look at successful people we've had on the podcast, there is always, I think deep down the belief that they're going to achieve whatever they want to achieve. Now, obviously you hit bumps in the road along the way and you have to work through those. But I think overall, if you, like you say, if you constantly think negative, then the outcome a lot of times is going to be negative. Versus if you can say, hey, the positive things and work with those, I think that that's very powerful for somebody's life. So.
Yes, and it's all about controlling those thoughts, and you can actually rewire your brain. So those negative thought patterns feel so automatic sometimes because they're well-worn paths in our brain.
Right.
But neuroplasticity and neuroscience says that we can change that, so we don't have to be stuck in those old patterns.
I've actually read about that before, and it paints a picture of if you've ever been in a field or to a farm with a bunch of animals, they always take the exact same path. So like a cow in a pasture, there'll be this worn path, and it doesn't matter what the path looks like. Whatever that path, the same cow, they just follow it every single day. Sheep are the same way. They all just take the path of least resistance. And if there's not a bunch of grass that they have to, trudge through, then they're going to follow the same path. So human brains are kind of like the same.
Exactly.
We take the most efficient route, which is not necessarily the best for our health, but it's also the easiest as far as thinking, serving.
Right. And it's actually a path in our brains. Those neurons fire together and create literal paths. And so when we can form that new path, just like the tall grass, it can be really challenging at first, but the more you walk it, just like the cows, the easier that path will become.
Does the old path ever go away?
That is a great question. That is something that I'm not a clinician, so I will say I'm not a clinician.
In your experience, have you seen it?
In my experience, those old paths don't go away completely, but you found new ways around them.
Right.
So now with these healthier mindsets and healthier thoughts, you're able to realize that those old ways of thinking and those old paths aren't in your best interest.
Gotcha.
And so you're more likely to catch yourself and reroute.
Fantastic.
Well, and if you remember, we've talked about on here the book, I don't know if you've read it or not, Think and Grow Rich. So it is.
Hill, baby.
Yeah. So if you read the book, it is very.
Don't read the last chapter.
It is very, there are some odd chapters in it, but there's some very odd things that he talks about in there. It's almost like he's talking about mystical things, like, hey, if you can almost conjure he makes it seem like spirits that they can lead you to success. But I think what he's really meaning is that what you're talking about is your thoughts. I think if you think on something enough, you're going to find a way to get to that just subconsciously. And I think that's really what he's thinking about. I don't necessarily believe in all the things he was talking about in there, but I think that's what he was meaning by that. So it is a very interesting thing that, what we let into our mind and what we dwell on really does affect our day-to-day activities, and then really eventually how the trajectory of our life. So
yes. I mean, you wake up one morning and if your first thought is, it's going to be a terrible day. Because sometimes, we do wake up feeling not our best. But if that's the thought that you stick with throughout the rest of your day, then you're right. It's probably not going to be the best day.
Great, yeah.
But if you realize that you've thought that when you wake up, you can, well, it's 6:05 in the morning. It can't be a horrible day yet.
Right.
I'm going to make a great pot of coffee. That's a good thing. I have breath in my lungs. That's a good thing. I get to drive to work. That's a good thing. So you can reframe your thoughts.
It sounds like gratitude is like a first step in that process.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So when gratitude is in your brain, you don't have the space to worry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why gratitude journals are becoming so popular right now.
Yes, I have heard of that.
Because when you're writing down what you're thankful for, what's good in your life, what's going on in a positive way, you don't have the capacity in your brain to also think about those negatives at the same time.
So how, I guess, is it ingrained in us as a human species, or how do you see like our survival instincts? So obviously, the world has only been like it is for what? I mean, maybe 100 years at this point. I mean, before that, there was really a high chance of you dying for just whatever reason. Whereas now, we're a little bit more sheltered from that. Do you think a lot of those negative tendencies are just wired into us just as a survival instinct?
It's almost like you're segueing me into things. So yes, this is called negativity bias.
Just think ahead.
Negativity bias is so interesting. So psychologists have studied that, why these negative thoughts feel to be so ingrained in us. And that's what they call it, it's negativity bias. It's from when way back our ancestors' survival did depend on scanning the area for danger, not necessarily noticing beauty. You always had to be aware of threats, right, whether that was, a wild animal, poisonous plant, sickness, whatever it is. You had to be aware of these things. But now, luckily, knock on wood, we don't really have to be on the lookout for wild animals coming to attack us or poisonous plants. We have modern medicine, but our brains are still in that wiring to look for the negative. So it has kind of followed from our past.
Makes sense.
How do you go from a pessimistic attitude into an attitude of optimism versus almost like a in-between realist and optimist, maybe not like a hopeless optimist, but like a realistic optimist? Like Tyler was saying, like, hey, we're not going to use the negative thinking here. Like, we're going to hope for the best.
Right. Through intentionality.
Okay.
You have to be intentional and aware of what you're thinking. Because honestly, it's easy to just stay stuck in those negative thoughts. Mm-hmm. It's easier to dwell on what's negative and just let your thoughts run. It's less you have to actively do to work toward the better.
Right.
So I have this 3-step framework to help us practically take our thoughts captive and renew our minds. Because when you can renew your mind, you can renew your life and your business. The first step is to identify. We have to be able to identify those negative thoughts in our heads. What are they? If you can name them and actually write them down, figure out what that negative thought is. And so research actually shows that we have more than 6,000 thoughts a day. So our minds are buzzing.
That's probably like 3 for you.
I definitely cut down on that. I like a little more clear.
Yeah, you pulled a whole group down. We're all at like 7 and Tyler just...
There we go. So, however many you have, But a majority of those thoughts are negative. So when psychologists and researchers that have tracked this, it shows that a majority of our thoughts are actually negative. Out of those 6,000 or 3,000, out of those thoughts in our heads. And so we have to identify what they are. Be aware of them. Write them down. Is it the core belief that I'm not good enough and I'll never be good enough? Is it that imposter syndrome that I don't belong in this leadership position? I don't have the qualifications? Is it the thought that I could never start my own business? Never. What is that thought? Name it and identify it. The second step is to investigate it. Where in the world did that thought come from?
That was my next question.
There we go. Yes. Is it an inherited belief that's been passed down through generations in your family?
Is that a thing?
It is.
Okay. Like genetically, your predisposition to think less of yourself?
Well, it's what you hear growing
Okay.
up.
Gotcha.
If your grandmother was constantly saying, we are a poor family. We will never make it out of the lower class. We are stuck here.
I'm broke.
Exactly. If those are thoughts that your mother heard growing up from her mother, then she's more likely to relay those thoughts to you. So then you would grow up hearing, we're never going to make it out of here. We don't have the means that we need. We don't have this. We don't have that. So then you're more likely to believe it. So that's like an inherited thought that's been passed down. And then there are also thoughts born out of our own lived experience. So is it something that you were told by a coworker? Is it something that you just believe about yourself? Is it something that you had an experience in middle school? Someone told you that something mean in middle school and it has stuck with you into adulthood. And so you still hear the voice of that middle schooler telling you that you're not good enough.
And it's driving decisions that you make today.
Yes. We investigate everything else in our lives. So why don't we investigate our thoughts? The things that, like you said, are driving our future.
Probably because it's painful.
It's painful and it's hard. And it feels so automatic to have those negative thoughts. So automatic. And then the third step is to instill. We have to instill new beliefs. And when we instill something, it's that gradual, ongoing process. Going back to the tall grass, you can't make that new path overnight. It takes time to make that path. So you have to have this grace for yourself, dedication to keep going. And so when you can instill those new beliefs, eventually, over time, you'll make that clear path in the tall grass.
Fantastic. I love it.
What do you say about, because I've heard, and I know that there are people out there that sometimes those negative thoughts fuel them to be successful. So sometimes maybe they say, well, I did grow up poor. So that's, I never want to be in that situation again. So that ultimately is the negative thought that fuels them to be successful. Do you think
someone told them they weren't good enough or couldn't do something? You've heard that from athletes and stuff before.
Right.
Do you think eventually, if it is based on a negative thought, that eventually down the road you will see some sort of burnout? Or do you think that can fuel someone for the rest of their life?
Great question. So you do see it right there. You hear from athletes, CEOs, like you said, that negative thought that was told to them is what's fueling them. But if you think about it, they're not believing that negative thought. They've taken that thought captive, essentially, because they're not letting it dictate what they believe about themselves. So if someone told them, you'll never run a company, they're thinking, oh yeah, let me prove you wrong. So they've already said that thought is not true about me. Here's what's true about me. Let me prove you wrong.
Gotcha.
Does that kind of make sense? So they're not believing that negative thought. They're just using it to shape the positive to move forward.
Makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit more about the founding of your business. And when you were thinking about it, when you decided to actually launch into it, what were the negative thoughts that you were thinking about? And how did you overcome
Good question. Because I have those negative thoughts too.
Right.
It's something that I think is part of the human experience. We're going to have negative thoughts. It's part of life. But it's what you do next that matters. And so one of my thoughts, honestly, was, who am I to start a business? Who am I? I don't have my MBA. When I went to school, I got a degree in marketing and a degree in strategic communications. Because I'm interested in communicating with people, talking with people, our inner dialogue, external dialogue, what that looks like. I don't have my MBA. I don't know how to run a business. I don't know the first step in what that looks like. And so it was realizing that that's the negative thought, that identify. What is it? Why do I believe that I can't run a business?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be just me. So that's when I started reaching out. I met someone here in our community, Adam Horlock. He works with local businesses.
You need to get away. I'm just kidding. I'm completely kidding. He's our producer. He's literally behind the camera, right?
Adam's the best. But he's been able to help me with those steps that I didn't know how to do.
He's great at positive.
He is. And he's great at what he does with businesses. So he's out there working on the marketing plan, working on how we can actually launch, what that looks like.
Right.
And so knowing that I don't have to have all the answers.
That's a good point.
Those negative thoughts that tell me that I don't have all the answers, that's fine. I can find someone who does.
Right.
You don't have to do it alone.
I've heard people say, don't be the librarian, or don't be the historian, be the librarian.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So you don't have to know everything that's in this history book or every history book. You just have to know where to find them, right? Or where to find the person who does that.
I love that.
Yeah. So
I'm going to start using that.
That's how I try to live my life. I will never be the historian, but I might know somebody who can tell me what you want to know.
Right. And I think so many business leaders have that thought that they have to know it all, that they have to be the historian.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where Hope Unlocked can come in, because they look so successful on the outside. We work with entrepreneurs, business leaders who from the outside have it all together, but internally they're exhausted because they're trying to be that historian, because they have these thoughts in their head of don't stop. You can't get, you have to do this right now. Don't trust anybody else. It's all on you. So they're pushing to exhaustion. And that's where Hope Unlocked can come in and help the situation.
That's awesome.
When you touched on something that I'm curious about there, because a lot of times you do see successful people, they do have trouble letting go of things and putting a task, letting someone else do that. Because like you said, they feel like it's not going to be done up to their standard or be done correctly. How can business leaders have things that they want to pass off to their team and be able to, feel good about that? That's the question.
Yes.
Do I feel good about it?
Right. So it's all about trust and that open line of communication. If you're passing off a task and that person feels comfortable asking you follow-up questions, then you're fine. The issue comes when you pass off that task, but the open line of communication and trust isn't there. And so they don't feel like they can come to you for help or for assistance or for more resources.
But they've already told you, yeah, I'll take care of it.
Exactly.
But now they don't know what they're doing, and now they have to figure it out.
Exactly. So if we can open that line of communication, and part of that is once again taking those thoughts captive.
Right.
If the supervisor can say, okay, I believe in my employee.
Mm-hmm.
I hired them for a reason. They're good at their job.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, if the employee can say, I trust my supervisor. I am qualified for this role. And it's okay to ask questions. If we can believe those thoughts, it kind of opens up this whole new realm.
And then that leads me to, okay, you have the employee that you do trust and you do believe that they have the capabilities to do the task, because otherwise you wouldn't have given it to them. How do you then coach that employee?
This feels really specific.
And when things don't go correctly, how do you, I guess, have that conversation with them without
Firing.
causing them to have negative thoughts? Because, you bring them in and you say, hey, I gave you this task and you screwed it up. How do you have that conversation? And then they're not, pushing those negative thoughts on them. But then they're like, okay, gosh, I screwed up.
Yes. I was listening to a podcast a while ago. And
Is it Bourbon and Business?
I was listening to that one. But
Those guys, some smart cookies there.
Yes, great podcast.
But no, probably not.
No, this was the Craig Rochelle Leadership Podcast I was listening
Way
to.
better. That guy knows what he's talking about.
And he had a guest on there that was kind of talking about that same question, as how do we have these hard conversations with employees? And they talked about how it's all about knowing the emotions in the room. So if your employee is coming to you with an emotional mindset, you can't have a strategic conversation. If they're coming to you with a strategic mindset, you can't have an emotional conversation. So you have to be on the same page. So you can open that conversation with, how are you feeling right now? Let them know.
I feel fine.
Right. So if it's a quick,
Strategic it is.
if it is quick, I feel fine. What do you need me to do?
Yeah.
Great. You're both in that strategic mindset. And so you can, say, here are a few things that I've noticed that I think we could work on together and have that strategic. But if they're saying, I just don't feel comfortable here at work. I don't know if the other coworkers really like me. I don't know. They're not in the emotional state to hear those strategic bullet points of what needs done. So you can acknowledge what they're feeling and say, okay, I know you're feeling this way. Have your empathy there for a minute. And then say, but is it okay if I kind of move this into some ways that I think can practically help you here on the job? And then, in a sense, they'll give you permission to say that, yes, my mind is ready to
It's like
hear
a soft
that.
transition.
Yes. Yeah. And so that can often make those conversations easier.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because I think a lot of times you do see your CEO types, your business leaders, they are more practical. Right. A lot of times.
Well, they're also super busy, so they
Yeah.
feel like they don't have time or space to be emotional.
And when they're looking at things, a lot of times it's solely based off of results. It's not so much based off of emotion. So whenever they're looking at something, I mean, obviously they're looking at numbers. They're holding themselves accountable. You know, they're not being emotional about it. They're just saying, hey, we're failing here. What can we do? But when you bring that to some people, to your point, that there are some emotions there, and that's not, you know, a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be emotional. But I think when you have the person that is unemotional, that's bringing the points to the person that is emotional, that's where the bomb kind of goes off. And then we see that you lose the trust in leadership. You lose, you know, they feel like, oh, he's, you know, or he or she is a, you know, cold-hearted, you know, person. They just, you know, they just bring me in here and just tell me what I did wrong. And I think, you know, it is a very wise thing if you, like you said, on the front end, acknowledge the emotions, ask for permission, and then go into the results. So
It's that EQ versus IQ.
Yeah.
What are we doing here right now? What's best for this employee in this moment? And that's where Hope Unlocked can come in and help. So when we see this exhaustion from leaders, it can lead to burnout in their team. Because if the leader's feeling exhausted, you know the employees are feeling that as well. It leads to poor communication. Those lines of communication don't feel open again. We don't know how to have those conversations. What does that look like? I can't trust my coworkers.
Right.
And then it also leads to this lack of hope in the workplace. And I know hope is something that we don't talk about often in business, but oh my goodness, it is so important. So important. If you're not working towards something better, if you don't have hope for the future, what are you doing in your business? Business is all about looking forward, improving the world, making the world a better place in the future. So you've got to have that hope. So when Hope Unlock comes in, those are kind of the three areas that business leaders can expect growth from. We will eliminate your burnout, because if we're all on the same page, if we can take those thoughts captive, we can have those conversations, reduce burnout. We can open the lines of communication. If we're taking our thoughts captive, if we're really looking at what we're thinking about, what are those thoughts running our lives, it'll make a much more cohesive workplace.
in the workplace or in an organization, how important is it to have a standard of excellence? So obviously, you know, that the whole team's bought into.
Are you going to bring up Nick Saban again?
I am. We look at a great example here. You know,
This is me knowing my.
A great example of this, and I use a lot, is, you know, Nick Saban. If you look at what he did at Alabama,
You don't want to bring up Lane Kiffin example?
his is not the example that we want to. So we look at Saban, we look at what he did at Alabama. Obviously, it was a special thing, but at the core of it, I think it was his standard and how he held everybody in the organization accountable to that. But there was no questions about what is the standard here. I think that he treated the best player on the team like he treated the worst player on the team. And I think that
Except the kicker. You never like kickers.
Kickers, they're not really on the team. But anyways, so, you know, in an organization, though, I think a lot of times, and a lot of wires get crossed, is when you are treating the top employees, maybe the top producers in the organizations differently than maybe you're treating the staff that's greeting people that come in. What type of dysfunctions do you see, I guess, lack of clarity on that in the organization?
We've all been at those entry-level spots at some point in our lives, whether it was your high school job, your college job, your postgraduate job. At some point, we've all been the lowest on the totem pole. And so if you think back to what you were feeling in that moment, what you were feeling when your supervisor would talk down to you, or maybe you had a great experience and what you loved that your supervisor did to make you feel included and special and a valued part of the team. I think that's a really important thing to remember, because we all have to start out somewhere on that bottom level. Work your way to the top. You hear of the corporate ladder. You know, you can't just start at the top of the ladder. You've got to get there. And so if we can realize what that was like for us, and either what we wish would have happened or what we liked that happened, what we didn't like, that can make us be so much better at our leadership.
Well, Dakota, I think it's a good time for a spiced apple break.
Yes.
It's not really a bourbon.
Spiced apple punch. Yeah, it's a
You drank all yours.
yeah, it was delicious. I don't know what, are you tasting the same thing as me? Did somebody spit in yours?
It's just not my cup of tea.
I guess so. Cup of punch. I thought it was delicious. I thought it was light. It was delicate, perfect for a punch. Now, I will say you probably shouldn't just drink it room temp like we have it here. It's best served warm, according to the back of the bottle. But I think it'd be really good over ice, or like if you'd kept this in the freezer or something, honestly. I think you have to judge based on intent behind the bottle. This isn't made to be a sipped bourbon every night. It's made for a type of punch. So I'm going to go 8.0.
Okay.
Doubled your score because I'm better. I did have a question.
Yes.
Regarding that conversation between employee and manager. At what point is it not on, I've done my work, I've done my self-healing of those internal dialogues, I'm working on myself. I don't think it's ever like a goal that you get to accomplish.
Right.
You have to work on this like your whole life. It's just like a mindset type thing. It's a lifestyle. But at what point is it like, okay, that's on them, not on me? You know what I'm saying? So like at what point am I not responsible for that person's way that they're feeling? Because I've heard some people say, you're not responsible for other people's feelings. And I've heard some people say, you are to a point responsible for other people's feelings. If I punch Tyler in the face and he hurts, that's my fault.
Did you say if I hurt you, if you punch me in the face?
No, I said if you hurt. But if I say, hey, Tyler, this wasn't done to the expectations that you signed an agreement on. Now, because of that, there's also the consequences that you also signed an agreement on. And we have to implement those consequences and put you on a performance improvement plan, a PIP. Sorry, Tyler. I know you've been great in the past, but this year your numbers just weren't cutting it. We got to put you on a PIP. But that's okay. You're going to come back, blah, blah, you know, whatever. But like, at what point is his emotional well-being not my responsibility?
That is a really good question. So you can only control your own thoughts.
Right.
You can't control some, as much as we want to sometimes, we can't control other people's thoughts and emotions. I had a coworker once say that emotions are really good visitors, terrible residents. Emotions, they tell you what you're feeling. They're really important to acknowledge and to recognize. But if you let them sit and fester, they're terrible residents. And you can't control that about somebody else. So as long as you are taking those steps with your inner dialogue and your thoughts and your growth, ultimately that will impact the people around you. They'll see a difference in you. They'll want the difference because they'll see what it's doing in your life and the positivity that it's having over you, your family, and your business.
Right.
But the hard truth is you can't control someone else's. I would argue that it's not your responsibility to cater and coddle someone else's emotions.
Gotcha.
But you do have to be kind. You do have to be honest. You do have to be thoughtful and polite.
And I think that goes back to the point, the clarity, you know, is there clarity on the expectations? Because if there is clarity and it's clearly defined that these are the expectations, regardless of what your emotions are, we didn't meet the expectations. Now we can have a conversation about the emotions in that, but like we told you on the front end, hey, this is what the expectation. And I think that, you know, to be fair on the front end, the clear expectations, but then also take into account, like you're talking about, the emotional, because let's face it, you're working with humans every day. So there's emotions involved. And if you ignore those, then you're probably not going to keep a team around very long.
We are emotional creatures. We are created with emotions. It's something that's part of us, and it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Great visitors, terrible residents.
I like that.
Right.
I think a lot of CEOs, business leaders, people who want to own companies and stuff don't realize, because they haven't had great examples of what a true leader looks like as far as providing that space for emotional well-being as well as the expectations, right? Because usually, I mean, no offense to our boomer friends in the audience, but like they grew up in an environment where it was like, nah, you didn't meet it, you're done, out, gone, sorry, sayonara. And now it's like, but wait, where am I going to go? You know, there's like all this pushback from feelings and stuff. So life is, I've heard it said, life is best lived in the balance. And I think that's true for a lot of things, specifically this too, providing that excellence and that emotional space.
One other thing I want to touch on is, you know, now because we are so connected to our work, you know, obviously used to, like you talked about, the boomer generation, when they left work, they left work.
They had to.
And they could disconnect.
Cell phones.
And they had time to explore those emotions and things. Now,
email was.
Yeah. Now when we get home, I mean, you know, your work is on your phone. How important is it to
your niece is texting you?
Yeah. How important is it for you to disconnect from that so you can explore those emotions and have that clarity when you go into work the next day?
Oh, I think it's so important.
Make time to reflect.
Yes, I think there has to be that disconnect between work and personal life.
Mm-hmm.
If you are constantly focused on your work at home, in the morning, at night, before bed. If you're focused there, that means you're not focused on your family. So if you're constantly reading those emails, if the last thing you do before bed is check that final email, you're not paying attention to your spouse. You're not paying attention to your kids. And that's going to suffer. And so if we continue that cycle, what's going to happen when your family starts to suffer? Well, you're not going to be emotionally ready for work. So it's this vicious cycle if we don't take control of it. I think there has to be that separation. And it goes back to that conversation with your supervisor or with your employees. What do you expect? Are your hours strictly 9 to 5? Or are you going to have to work a weekend every once in a while? Are you expected to answer texts after 5 p.m.? I've had supervisors before that have told me, don't worry about answering texts after work hours. If I text you, it's just because I'm thinking about it and I do not expect you to respond.
That's a clear boundary.
And that is very important for leaders to understand, because I think a lot of times, like you say, like you send a message out, you have no expectation that someone's going to reply to it. But
that's never been said.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, I actually told someone, my office is upstairs in my office, and I sent someone in my office a Teams message. I said, hey, run up here real quick. When they got to my door, they were breathing. They actually ran up to my office like thinking it was, and I was just saying, hey, when you get a minute, just run up here.
Right.
But then I thought about that. I was like, well, I need to be clear about what I say. I have people running wind sprints up here to my office. So
Tyler, the second you got to that door, he'd be like, why are you running? What are you doing?
And so, but whenever that happened, I did think, okay, maybe I need to have some clarity on what I'm saying. But seriously, think about if you send someone something and they're at the house and they get it at night, it has that same effect on that person as that moment did. So I think having clarity, like you said, and, defining the expectations and things like that is very important in our organization.
And it'll lead to burnout eventually. If you're constantly focused on work, answering those emails, focused on the next task that needs to be done, you're going to burn out. And your retention rate is going to plummet.
Have we moved from the culture of hustle and grind into a culture of space and time?
I think we're working on it.
Okay.
I think we're seeing that shift.
Is that specific with like Gen Z coming into the workforce, or have you seen it also with the older generations too, just getting tired of the status quo?
I do think it's more Gen Z coming into the workforce and having a positive effect. So many people dog on Gen Z.
They do.
But I think Gen Z has this powerful presence in the workplace.
They're much more emotionally aware than anybody else.
Yes. And they want to work. They want to be at the table. They want that seat at your table. Because
sometimes they want the higher seat, though. Got to work on it.
That's true. We all come in at that bottom totem pole. We all come in at the bottom. Got to work our way up that ladder. Yeah. But I think that their expectation with that work-life balance has had a positive impact for the most part on the older generations in the workplace.
Yeah. There's a lot of softies who are in leadership roles now. Well, that's how they used to be described, I should say. They're probably much more just emotionally intelligent than their older generations, their older counterparts, but they're a lot more soft when it comes to, I need some more time off. It's like, that's fine, Whereas otherwise it was like, you took a day off last week. What do you need another day off for? I gave you 10 hours when you were sick. What do you want?
Right, right.
Well, Jenna, we appreciate you coming on today. We always like to take this time, just tell our listeners how they can get in contact with you.
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, jennahopeharris.com. Would love to connect with you there. That's where you can learn more about keynotes, workshops, how Hope Unlocked can come in and help your business. Also on LinkedIn, Jenna Hope Harris, Instagram, Jenna Hope Harris. I would love to connect with you.
Perfect. You want to give us your thoughts on the punch?
On the punch. Okay, so honestly, I'm not a big bourbon drinker. Like you said at the beginning, I don't like my alcohol to taste like alcohol. So this is okay for me. Like, it wouldn't be my choice, but I could get behind it.
Okay. You want to give us a rating on it?
Well, see, knowing that I have limited experience with bourbon, I would have to probably say this is maybe a 7 out of bourbons. 7?
Wow, what does that tell you about your score?
So,
wait, let me provide some space. How does that make you feel?
Doesn't make me feel anything.
Okay. That's strategic mindset.
So we're going to give it a 5.8. How does that sound? So,
sounds good.
Up in your score.
Yep. So we'll give it a total 5.8. If you like sweet things that there's no alcohol taste at all, go pick it up. We do want to thank our sponsor, Cheers Vineyard in Gluckstadt. If you want to get a bottle of this, go out there and talk to JT, and then they've got bottles of everything else there that you can think of. And to our listeners, however you stream this podcast, if you give us a rating and follow us on socials, and we will see you next week.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
If you have any feedback or would like to be featured, reach out to us at bourbonandbusinesspodcast@gmail.com.
Or find us on Instagram at Bourbon and Business Podcast.
Thanks again for listening.
Follow us for more content and info on the next episode.